Something in the woods. Something stalked me and my friends in the woods. Hey everyone, I've never posted on here, but I wanted to share a story that actually happened to me. This story has been pretty hard for me to talk about, as it was one of the freakiest moments of my life. I also really just wanted some input on the situation, to be honest. This happened around March of 2021. I believe I was 17 at the time. One of my friends was visiting from out of town at the time, and we had gotten really into airsoft at the time. Anyway, the neighborhood I lived in at the time had a large area of undeveloped land just up the street. It was full of pine trees and whatever, and was a few miles long wide. We used to play airsoft up there all the time and just called it the woods. So me and my friend, we'll call him Christian, devised a plan to invite a large group of my high school friends to the woods and play hide and seek. The only catch was me and Christian were going to dress up in camo ghillie suits and shoot our friends with airsoft guns just to screw around with them, so me and Christian got dressed up. He was wearing a tan ghillie suit, mask and all, and I was wearing camo BDUs, black mask, and a weird mesh tan camo sheet tied around me like a poncho. We ended up finding a ditch in the woods close to the edge of my neighborhood and set up our first spot. Our plan was to move from spot to spot throughout the night while avoiding my group of friends. By the time we were prepared, it was around 6 p.m. and the sun was beginning to set. We waited about 30 minutes and kept hearing branches snapping, pine cones falling, footsteps, etc. We chalked it up to woods noises at the time. We waited until about 7, and then we got the text that the group of guys had arrived and were ready to look for us. For reference, they had no idea we were wearing camo and all that, so we sent some stupid cryptic texts back like, "Come and find us, we can see you," among other things. We began hearing the guys running around and hid in our first spot. This continued for a while, but as time progressed, my friends were starting to get really close to us while they were looking. So we decided to move to our second spot. We got up and moved spots. The way the woods were set up was north and south of the woods was about 5 miles of just trees, where east was about 4 miles and west was only a couple hundred yards. The west side also faced a main highway next to my neighborhood. So me and Christian walked to the west side and then south into the woods, hugging the perimeter of the trees. We walked for some time, keeping an eye on my friends, who had no idea where we were. We ended up coming up on this super deep trench in the back of the woods. We peered in and saw it was about 15 feet down and pretty steep. So we slid into the trench and waited at the bottom. After a few minutes, it was pitch black. Christian ended up realizing he left his glasses at our first spot. He had taken them off to wear his ghillie suit mask. So he said he was gonna quickly run back and grab them, then immediately come back. I was obviously kinda hesitant, but I agreed and he took off. I waited for probably 15 minutes and started hearing some commotion. I could hear my friends saying something along the lines of, "I saw someone. They're running. How are they so fast?" I figured Christian had promptly gotten caught, so I was getting ready to give up, until I suddenly heard someone baseball slide into the trench on the opposite side of me. Keep in mind this trench was about 15 feet deep and 45 feet long, so I couldn't see the other side without walking over. I assumed Christian had slid in and escaped from my friends because I heard them running somewhere else. I started calling out to Christian, but I didn't get a response. I ended up getting a little annoyed and said something like, "What the fuck are you doing?" As soon as I said that, a stick flew out of the darkness and landed right in front of me. I was pretty confused and kept calling out for Christian until I heard whatever was on the other side of the trench start moving. I heard leaves rustling and what sounded like someone's knee pops or something. I paused and stopped talking. I waited a few more seconds and whatever was on the other side started taking very deliberate heavy steps, slow and heavy. I figured it was one of my friends trying to freak me out, so I took one of the airsoft guns we brought and switched it to full auto. I fired a few bursts into the darkness, figuring whoever or whatever it was would yell or something, but the steps just kept coming. At this point, I was more confused than afraid, so I grabbed my stuff and climbed out of the trench. I once again ran to the western perimeter of the first and eventually got caught by all of the guys. We laughed about it for a while, but one of my friends ended up asking me, "How did you change so fast?" I was obviously confused and asked him what he meant. He explained that him and the group saw someone who was really skinny and tall running around the woods. I'm 6'1" and was probably 175 pounds at the time. They all kinda gave me a weird look when I told them I had been wearing the camo and poncho all night. I ignored it and went to find Christian. I walked a ways and found him shining a small flashlight in the direction of the trench I was in prior. He jumped when I walked up to him and said, "What the fuck?" I apologized for scaring him, but he stopped me. "How did you get over here so quickly?" I once again asked what he meant, and he said that he saw someone peering from behind a tree just behind the trench, literally while I was in the process of getting caught. My heart sank a little bit, but we assumed someone from the group was messing with us. We ended up meeting the group and did a roll call, but everyone that was invited was there. Christian and I started explaining what we had saw, and the entire group explained they saw a really tall and skinny silhouette sprinting around the woods. They assumed it was me due to the build. We ended up walking to the tree where Christian the silhouette. He pointed to where the head and shoulder of the silhouette was behind the tree, but the spot where the head was literally probably 8 feet off the ground. Everyone got really quiet and we decided to quickly leave the woods. It wasn't until we had exited the woods and gotten onto the street that lead to my house that Christian and I paused and looked into the woods. We waited a few seconds, heard what sounded like the prop hunt whistle from deep in the woods. We obviously freaked out and quickly got back to my house, where I told my parents. It's been years since then, but I still get freaked wondering what the fuck happened, and what would have happened if I stayed in the trench longer. Thank you for watching. Subscribe and follow my other socials.